war. We're going to welcome in now Executive Vice President of the Coalition for Jewish Values, Rabbi Yaakov Menken. Rabbi, great to see you as always. So another horrific anti-Semitic attack happening just last week in London, where two Jewish men were stabbed. The suspect, a Somali-born British citizen, is now behind bars and charged with attempted murder. But the Jewish community is still on edge.
It cannot be underestimated how serious a problem this is. And it's through much of the civilized world because it has welcomed in people who hate our values and hate what America stands for. The idea of individual liberties, the right to disagree peacefully, all of these things, and replacing it with this hatred for Jews, using Israel as a pretense. Think about what it was that you said in the intro. The Iran war is causing a spark of attacks on individual Jews. That's like, it doesn't even begin to make sense. The Iranian people are desperate for freedom and love the fact that the Israelis and the Americans have united to finally fight Iran before it can gain a nuclear weapon. And here you have a guy who's just finding that pretense to hate on Jews. The same has happened, by the way, after October 7th, that the Hamas, the genocidal terror organization, attacking Israel, resulted in a spark of anti-Semitism and attacks on individual Jews in America. And you can't underestimate the importance of the incitement, the contribution made by the incitement, whether it be from the left-wingers, the so-called Palestinian activists on college campuses, or people like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens on the right, all conspiring to destroy what America stands for.
Yeah, and, talk to us about the rhetoric, not just on the left, but on, coming from some on the right, and just how dangerous it is and it fits into all of these attacks.
Well, I said in an article that I thought that Tucker Carlson had, in a way, done us a favor by making the lie so blatant. And he did so by disgracing the book of Esther, which, of course, is revered by Christians just as it is by Jews. The book of Esther describes how a genocidal madman, Haman, conspired and got the king to write an edict that all the Jews should be killed. And because an edict could not be rescinded under Persian law, the Persian king later, once his queen, Esther, revealed that she herself was a Jew, and thus subject to this genocidal madman's plan to exterminate her. And she convinced the king to allow the Jews to defend themselves, and 75,000 genocidal murderers were killed. In fact, the Bible says so explicitly, that the people killed were those who hated them, who hated the Jewish people. And Tucker Carlson turned that on its head and said these were people who included people who committed no crimes, and they were Persian. Sorry, they were from all 127 nations of the Persian Empire, and their unifying thing was that they hated Jews and were out to murder them. The neutralization of murderous terrorists is genocide. That's what Tucker Carlson said. That's also the definition of genocide used by all these leftist organizations referring to Gaza. If you want to defend Jewish lives, you're a genocidal barbarian. That's the leftist talk. And that's what's going on in Iran. It explains Gaza. It's a very tragic situation. And, of course, this type of hatred that is now being allowed to spread in Britain and in America is never going to end with the Jewish people. It's going to tear these countries down.
Rabbi Menken, we have 30 seconds left or so, but I know someone, I read this somewhere, said this is really becoming a normalization of anti-Semitism in the UK. And I know the government is trying to help out with this. They're putting about an additional $25 million to increase security to help protect Jewish communities there. But do you think that's enough? And what else do you think needs to be done?
Well, sadly, the first thing the government needs to do is to rescind its recognition of a place called Palestine. Palestine is a racist, in fact, it's a European colonialist name for the homeland of the Jews. It was deliberately put in place to dissociate the Jews from their homeland of Judea. So this nonsense that it's actually an Arab who is a Palestinian needs to be unwritten out of dialogue. The idea that a Palestinian is an Arab, that Palestine was an Arab country, that Palestine was there before Israel, that's what is justifying. It's being used as a pretense by hateful people. It was mythology to begin with. It's time for the British government to bring that mythology to an end. If it's really serious about combating anti-Semitism, that's one of the first things it will do, besides the protection that it needs to provide now, given what's happening.
Rabbi Menken, always great to be with you. Thank you so much for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Thank you for this.